Welcome back to Seriously Funny. I'm your host, Mashnur Kabir, and I watch Earth from the moon. This week we have a bit more of a nebulous fancy title that doesn't say anything about anything, but the title kind of encapsulates two different things instead of me having to write some really long title, so it's cool. Maybe, if I get the time or opportunity, you all will also be blessed with a short story. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Of course, at the time of recording this, I know what happens because I'm not just starting my script. And spoiler alert, no, I did not have time to write a story. I want to apologize, but to screw you, I'm not going to. Ha. But, yeah. I really wanted to write a story for this episode. I really did. But unfortunately, due to time constraints that I'll talk about at the end of the episode, if you care, I can't do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and write about what being at the top even means, which is the title of this episode. And the awkward thing for me is that I'm also writing this after writing the second point in this episode. So, I'm writing out of order, which I never really do, and some of my jokes for the next section might be a bit off because I wrote this entire section and then literally clicked and dragged it to the top, so the more you know, I guess. But that's the point here, though. Like I said, what does it mean to be at the top? And maybe it's better that being at the top is at the top of the episode. That's fitting, if anything. So you better not get mad at me, because if you are mad at me, I'll have you do all of my Verilog projects instead, and maybe then I'll have time to write your stupid short story, okay? Now that I stalled for a little bit, the top is pretty obvious, and I'm really just explaining it to make time, and maybe I'll write enough for the last section, and maybe my outro will be enough so that I can delete this entire section. Probably not, but whatever. Every time I say I won't make the time, though, I do go over, so that'll probably be somehow how this episode effing ends up here. Being at the top is pretty obvious. It's when you're the best at something, really. Do I really need to spell it out for you? No? Great, you get it. When you're the best at something, people look up to you. People look to you for information, for entertainment, whatever it may be, because you're the best. When you're at the top, it's a bit of a different world, and mountains display this really, really well, and we're going to be using a lot of effing mountain analogies this entire episode, so be ready for that. If you ever see an elementary schooler drawing a mountain, it's just a triangle. As you get higher and higher on the mountain, it's steeper and steeper, it's harder to climb, and the top doesn't have much space for many people. Of course, in real life, mountains aren't just big triangles. I mean, it's a good approximation, but it's just an approximation. However, even then, mountains do get harder to climb the higher that you go, and the top of the mountain doesn't have as much space in terms of area or circumference, whatever the frick you want to call it, for people. And it works out. Many people can't reach the top of the mountain anyways. Most people don't even try to reach the top of the mountain. There's only so many people that can be at the top of that mountain, and this mountain analogy works beautifully, hence why we're going to be using it the entire episode. As you climb up a mountain, or the mountain, whatever the frick it is, as you try to get to the top, as you want to, or as you try to become the best, it's pretty easy at the beginning to plod your way up. Sure, the mountain may look absolutely terrifying from the bottom, but it's shallow. You can start sprinting up the mountain, but as you continue to get higher, the air gets thinner, and you have a harder time getting up, and it seems like the world is saying you can't get to the top. I'm not gonna let you. Alright, you loser, go back home to your effing couch and be a potato and go drink your Mountain Dew and play your video games, you loser. But and honestly, the world is definitely actually saying that. The gravity, temperature, oxygen, air pressure, you need a lot of effing equipment to climb a mountain, but the closer that you get to the top, the harder it is to get there, and we'll talk about that more in our last point, I think. Hopefully. I might not have written that part because I literally just wrote it now, but whatever. We'll get there when we get there. But once you're up there, once you're up to the top of that mountain, the view might make it all feel worth it. And most people take in the view and say, well, what now? And clever people take in the view, smile, and they understand what was actually important. But that's a topic for another episode. We will use that mountain analogy again one day. The last thing I want to top this off with, I genuinely didn't mean to make this pun, but I will take it. When you listen to this episode, you may not care about reaching the top of any mountain ever. That's just not a thing that you want in your life. But you will know, or you will meet people that are the best. That is at, the figurative top. And if you don't meet people that are at the top, you'll meet people that want to be at the top. And knowing the things that we talk about in this episode will help you interact with those people. Spoiler alert, they're just people and they're probably lonely. I probably should have put that at the complete beginning of this episode, but 6 minutes in, whatever. I mean, if you're listening 6 minutes in, you're probably going to listen to the entire thing, right? So, whatever. The first thing we got on the chopping block today is celery. We're going to chop this up so good we'll be the best celery choppers in the world. We will be on the top of the celery cutting mountain, and that is the first point, being on the top. And so obviously this isn't the first point. You can see how I wrote this out of order. So this isn't the first thing we have on the chopping block today. This is the second thing we have on the chopping block today, and it's our celery. But at the end of the day, we're still going to be the best celery choppers in the world. That's how we're starting this. So yes, that joke fell through, but hopefully you can forgive that. The first thing, or not the first thing. I already read that. All right, I'm not going to reread it. I almost just did that on accident. Don't worry about it. I'm kind of a loser. I've never been at the top of anything. Clash of Clans, I stopped at Town Hall 8. Titanfall 2, I was pretty good, but I was no Danny Slasher. Apex Legends, I got the hang of it, but I never got to Pred, never got my 4K, my 20 kill, whatever. Genshin Impact, I'm free to play, so that's not happening. High school, I did get above a 4.0 GPA, but I was against some absolute geniuses, and we all know that I'm stupid, so I definitely wasn't at the top there. But in high school, where I was at the top, was being a senior. Yeah, you don't actually, you don't exactly have to work hard to become a senior. It's kind of just, handed to you. But please don't take my accomplishments away from me. Yeah? Thank you. Anyways, when I was a senior, I was at the top of the food chain, baby. I got to bully 3 years of underclassmen. They were all little fish, and I was the big, bad shark, blowing down all of their houses. I might have mixed up some nursery rhymes on that one, but you get the point. At quote, the top, end quote, I learned one lesson quickly. You ever heard it's lonely at the top? Yeah, that's completely true. I was a senior and I was bullying whoever I wanted, shoving people into lockers, throwing them into the toilet, the whole shebang. No, I did not actually do that, by the way. But the thing is, I loved a lot of my upperclassmen homies, but they all graduated the year before, of course. That's how high school works. And all I had really was a few underclassmen I knew here and there, and they were cool, sure. I bullied them a little, but who wouldn't? It's my duty as their senior, really. But other than that, there was no upperclassmen that were cool or maybe a little bit more mature or understanding of things, when I was at the top, because they all graduated. And the only people that I really had were mostly just my peers up there with me. And I loved them. They were really cool. But half of my homies were a grade or two above me. So when they graduated, it sucked. It was so sad. When you get up there, you want to be a senior, you're like, holy crap, I'm so excited to be a senior and bully all of those kids. But at the end of the day, it's definitely not all that it's made out to be, because you genuinely are, the most lonely you're going to be, depending on your other years, of course. If you only started making friends in your senior year, good for you. But then I guess you won't be as lonely. But, I really missed my upperclassmen buddies. All of that to say that it's lonely at the top. The next thing that happens when you're at the top, and I'll have to speak from life experiences that I understand and experiences from leadership positions I've had, and of course talking to many people, reading all the books, watching all the YouTube videos, and from doing all of that, I've learned that at the top, people see things differently, and they see you differently. If you're at the top, you yourself will see things differently, and if you're not at the top and you're looking at someone at the top, you'll see those people a little bit differently. And this kind of ties into the loneliness thing. If you're at the top, most people are looking up at you and you're looking down on them, and not in a condescending, pretentious way. No, I do that because I'm an a-hole. But if you're at the top, That's just how it is. And the truth is that most people just won't get to the top. It's not that it won't happen. And it's not that big. And most people don't have the wherewithal, the conviction, the desire, the energy, whatever it may be, to actually get to the top. So if you get to the top of something, you really are by yourself, but we already covered that. I saw this image, this picture on Instagram once. It was on Gary V's Instagram, I believe, and it was a picture of this dude at the top of a staircase. It was a drawn picture, like it wasn't a real picture. It was drawn. It was an art piece, but this dude was at the top of a staircase juggling glass plates, and there was a crowd in front of him really impressed by this dude, not breaking any of the plates. But the stairs behind the juggler had a bunch of broken plates all the way up the stairs until the top stair where he was successfully juggling the plates. A lot of times inspirational posts on Instagram are either wrong, stupid, or wrong, but that one I looked at and I think is completely true. So I guess this will probably be a bit more inspirational than informational, but when you're working on something, when you're working on your craft, when you're doing that thing that you want to do, doing that thing that you do want to be the best at, and I'm not like the other self-help losers that'll tell you to be the best at everything you do. No, if you have a chemistry class and your major will never have to do anything with chemistry ever, you don't need to be the best. You just need to pass, all right? But for the thing you do want to be the best at, if you have that thing, again, not everyone does, and that's fine. I think it's absolutely cool if you just want to be good enough. But if you want to be the best, you're going to fail a lot. You're going to F up, and you're going to mess up a lot of stuff. You're going to make a ton of mistakes, and you're probably going to want to quit, in which case refer to the episode about quitting. But I did say that this was going to be inspirational, and I told you that you're going to fail for the past, minute and a half. So, that also gives me a great idea to do an episode on failure. I've probably done it before, but recycling content is great, so I'm going to write that one down. But yeah, anyways, inspirational, I got it. Here's the thing. You're going to fail, but that's fine, because here's the thing. One day, if you keep at it, maybe you'll get to the top. And when you do, no one will care at all about the broken plates behind you, because most of them really won't even see them. When you're at the top, people only see the person at the top. Sure, the people that were there when you were breaking the plates will know the truth, but that's a minority, and it's good to have some people to ground you anyways. When you're aiming for the top, you're going to mess up. It's part of the game, but no one actually cares. And here's the thing, if anything, the fact that you messed up but still made it to the top just means that you now have an inspirational story. Write a book, make some more money. You just turned your strife into money, and that's what we like to see. Now, I also want to say that all of this and all of what happens at the top, it's not just for the hypothetical chance that you get there. Remember that the people that you see at the top of anything, they're probably kind of lonely up there, and they've probably broken a lot of plates to get there. They might seem like some extraordinary individual, but they're probably just an individual that did an extraordinary thing. Very, very, very rarely you'll meet someone that's actually extraordinary. The way you know if someone is extraordinary is if they don't have any broken plates and they were perfect the entire way through. But good luck finding those people. You'll probably never see one of them in your lifetime. They're insane and a different level of being. I said earlier that, quote, they're just people, end quote. They aren't. They're transcendent beings from the heavens. If you ever meet one of them, just bow down or something. I don't know, but it's something else. Again, you probably will never meet any of these people in your life, but whatever. All right, it's Saturday right now when I was first writing the script, and I just blazed through the last two parts of the script at like 100 words per minute. I have not typed this fast in a while. It was great, and there's probably a ton of typos, which there actually weren't that many, but right now, in this point of the script, I went to bed, so everything that we're about to read now, I literally wrote in the past like 10 minutes, so it might be a little bit void of content, and so if that's the case, one day I'm sure we'll talk about the dunning-kruger effect again, and we'll recycle the content. And I just kind of spoiled what we're going to talk about. But The last point of the episode that we have is the actual process of getting to the top. Just like the sunk cost fallacy 2 episodes ago, I want to talk about another fun cognitive bias or psychological effect called the dunning-kruger effect. In simple words, this cognitive bias says that people that suck at something think that they're really good, and people that are good at something don't think that they're the bee's knees at all. But that's a little bit reductive. It's a bit more complicated than that. The actual idea is that when you initially begin something, some hobby, some topics to research, some game, video editing, photography, whatever it may be. Since you've never done it before, you have everything to learn. And when you're first starting, it's so easy to learn all of the basics, especially when you're in that initial motivated state and you're just, trucking through everything, just learning, crazy. To tie this back to the mountain analogy, which I talked about at the beginning of the episode, that climbing the mountain is initially really quick. You can just sprint up the mountain for a while. It's not that steep, and you'll feel like you're making a ton of progress. You'll be like, oh, I'm almost there. When in reality, you've just probably covered 10% of the mountain. In the state of quick learning, you think you know everything. You're learning, you're absorbing, you're like a sponge, really taking in everything for whatever mountain you're climbing. But then you peak. You reach that 10% point and the basics have all been covered, and now you have to actually use your head and figure out not only how to learn things, because now that you just ran through the basics, you're onto the intermediate knowledge, which is much harder, but not only is it harder to learn, but it's harder to find. And now, since you're not learning as much and you're spending more time practicing because the concepts are more challenging, you think you're an absolute idiot. You think that you suck completely at doing whatever it is that you're doing, which is wildly different from how you felt earlier when you thought that you were, at the top of the world, you were the expert. Now you think you suck. If you keep going on this path, even though you feel stupid, you keep at it, at some point, that feeling of incompetency does go away. At least more or less. You're legitimately good at something, and then it's okay to say, I know what I'm doing. You may even be at the top of the mountain all the way. You might not just be good, but you might be the best. But even so, you understand your limits, you understand there's more mountains to climb, and you're much less arrogant than when you learned the basics. And that's the dunning-kruger effect. It's really great. I think it's absolutely hilarious that dumb people think they're geniuses and not dumb people are more humble. That's not always true, of course. Some people that are extremely talented really are arrogant a-holes, but I can't really call them arrogant because, well, they're right when they say that they're better than me. Then there's other people that genuinely think they're geniuses when they're actually complete idiots. Of course, that's not me. I'm a genius, right? Yeah, but that's the dunning-kruger effect. If you've ever climbed a mountain, which you will, if you ever have or you ever do, whatever, you will at some point one day. You'll get interested in something. It's going to happen. We all have hobbies we try out. I shuffle playing cards and I have this podcast. And when you do and you think you've learned it all, just remember you probably only learned a little bit and there's much more to go. Also, you're not as good as you think you are. Moreover, you're not as bad as you think you are. Don't worry about your performance. Just keep doing it. As long as you enjoy it, whatever. It doesn't matter. But there's definitely a lot more to say with the Dunning-Kruger effect and in the process of going up that mountain. And a lot of it, I think you could get from the beginning of this episode. Why am I stuttering? You can get from the beginning of this episode, especially when I talked about, going to the top of the mountain and, the beginning and how the air gets thinner and all that stuff. And it really is harder. Like, the further that you learn something and the more that you know about something, the less there is for you to figure out. So it's really hard for you to even find the new information to learn and to take in. And so that's what makes it harder for you to progress. Like, progression is like sort of, it's not an exponential curve. I think it's like the opposite of an exponential curve. And so at the beginning it's exponential, but then it tapers off and it's much, much harder. And that's what it's like to climb any mountain, to become an expert at anything. It's really easy and it's really great at the beginning. In the middle it's a little bit harder, but when you're like at that home stretch, that's the hardest part. That last 5% is probably as hard as the first 70%. It's not a good time. But yeah. Anyways, we're at the bottom of this episode now. So The last week was extremely busy. My physics lab was extraordinarily tedious. My circuits lab was impossible, and I made up half the numbers. I had a project due for digital systems, and I have another one due on Tuesday. The other one was due on Friday, which means I have 4 days to do that one. And then the project after the one on Tuesday is due 3 days after on Friday. It's going to suck. I haven't had much time to watch anime. I finished Tokyo Revengers. I'm just going to tell you right now to watch it. The ending is the biggest cliffhanger in the world, and it absolutely triggered me, so much so that I started reading the manga. That's never happened before, so that should tell you how good it is. Shout out to my cousin, or my brother, for pushing me to start reading manga. It's really great. And I did watch episode 1 of Girlfriend. It's funny, and if you haven't heard, and I haven't talked about Boruto, man, it's really they really had some insane fights and actual plot in the last few episodes. It's actually kind of worth watching now. Jeremy Zucker's entire album is incredible. Glaive and Erotica released a collaboration album titled Then I'll Be Happy, which is also incredible. I highly recommend listening to it. I love every song, just like the Glaive album a few weeks ago. The last thing I want to talk about, hopefully I don't go over time here, is a little bit of business. Apple's event invites did not go out the last week, and when you're listening to this is old news, but I'll talk about it anyways, because when you're listening to this, the 12th has already passed. October 12th is over, and maybe we got invites, but we'll see. But I'll talk about it anyways because I want to. If the invites go out this week for you, or on October 12th, so a few days ago, 3 days ago, I guess, when you're listening to this, that means that the event overlaps with Google's Pixels event. Of course, Apple's event is probably going to get more eyes, and it would probably be bigger, and Apple would really come in there full swinging their penis and just slap Google off the 19th and force them to push their event back, but I'm not sure they'll do that. Historically, aside from the last year, Apple does Mac stuff in October. Out of the past 10 years, 7 of the years, they've had Mac stuff in October, and then they had November, few of those years. So the other option is an event in the last week of October on the 26th. I think that having an event before we get too close to Black Friday, since Apple gives no discounts at all, making sure that people buy your product before they start thinking, things will go on sale soon. Why buy this full price Mac when I can buy this cheap Windows laptop? Apple probably wants to get things out and get money out of people's wallets before that. So I would anticipate a 26th event if we're being realistic, but the 19th is an optimistic date. So if invites came out this week, hooray. If invites did not come out this week, dang it. I got to wait another week. I saw my cousin the past weekend, and she brought her MacBook. It was fun playing around with it. Very, very excited to get my own and go crazy. But it looks like I'll probably have it in my hands the first or second week of November. So crap. But every week until then, I will still be making these episodes for you, even if I'm in physical pain, even if I have 10 shifts from my job and 50 projects from school. I got you, boo-boo. Sorry to spend so much time on the business topic, but I really wanted to talk about it. As an engineer, I don't have many people to talk about, business with. So thank you for listening. I will see you next week. Thank you once again for listening. I love you lots. Peace.